Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist and a student of natural law. And yeah, it's warm weather now, so you guys can see that I was once a tattoo artist. Um, I'm still discussing Formal Consensus, the book. It's a really in-depth book. I mean, it's amazing. I decided I'm not going to read through the generic bylaws because you can read that. I don't think it's something I would want to do nowadays. I think we could use it if we were going to be a PMA, we could use those generic bylaws. But excluding the tax information, obviously. All of these types of bylaws are available on the internet for cooperatives, and they can just be translated over to a private membership association, which really never needs to be registered in any way, and you would just need those bylaws and your minutes in case you were ever questioned by the court system, so that it would be proven that you're a private membership association and therefore exempt from the court system. But you'd have to have those the paperwork and the minutes kept regularly to prove that you existed and that you weren't just throwing that out there. In truth, there is no reason to ever register a private membership association unless you want to have a bank account, which is a whole other kettle of fish that I'm not going to get into here, but you can definitely talk to the experts around our area, all the people who are involved in talking about trusts. Those would be the people to talk to about that. Or I might write up something later, but it's rather in depth. A private membership association does have an IRS tax status called a 508c1a, but that is not listed on the website. It's buried in the IRS website because they don't want anybody to know about it. So it's much more in depth, and there are easier ways to do it in a trust, but we're not going there right now because we're not even like, this discussion is really only about communication. And I don't think we're at that level yet where we need to have a bank account. Even the group that I'm in that's doing the barter market, we're just basically using, when we have to use USD in order to print the books and our flyers and stuff like that, and we just equally contribute. So we're small right now. We only have 4 members using Consensus. We're not even using Formal Consensus because we don't need to yet. But as I said earlier, Formal Consensus was used by, and is still used today by, the Rainbow Gathering, which is enormous. And the thing I'll be reading next is geared more towards that. But this is just to show you, like, you can have consensus at a small group level, and then as it grows, you just add in the different roles so that the integrity of what you started remains and doesn't get carpet bagged away by the new people, which is what happened to the Denver barter market. That's the most recent experience I've had. It only took maybe 3 sessions for it to be completely changed into something else. And in order for that not to happen, you do have to have a set of principles and people that are committed to using a system to run your meetings, so that new people can come and go, but they don't change the original intention of the founders. So, Chapter 4, page 65, generic organizational structure. And again, the reason I find this to be, even though this was written by, Democrats in the 80s, back in those days, Democrats used to be freedom lovers. They were the more evolved in a way back then. Now, of course, they've gone off the deep end. I don't really associate with either of those labels, but I know that in the language in here is going to sound blue. But you got to remember, back then, we didn't have full-on oligarchy happening in the United States. So these were the radical left were at that time actually more freedom oriented than maybe even in a way, because the individual freedom, the point of all this is how to keep individual freedom in a group where we are going to try to move forward together, parallel to one another, although not intertwined with one another. How to do that. So now they're going to actually, they're actually moving in this book, they're moving towards becoming a nonprofit, which this again is dated before the New World Order takeover began. Although it was already in progress. It's been in progress for millennia, but now we're in that place where a lot of this stuff is dated. So the preface says the following structure proposal is designed for an organization of 100 people or more. So we're nowhere near that, but just to think about it, like this could be something that could be useful in the future. Each member of the organization would belong to an affinity group of between 5 and 20 adults. So the reason for that is because that's the largest probably amount of people that could actually get consensus accomplished in a reasonable amount of time. Each affinity group would be autonomous, having complete authority to decide who is in the affinity group, how the affinity group is organized internally, and to what degree the affinity group directly participates in the organization. Affinity groups can be created by a group of new members, a split or spin-off from an existing affinity group, or individuals drawn from other affinity groups into a new affinity group. The relationships between members of an affinity group are created by the people involved. In this organization, behaviors are expected to be nonviolent, respectful, and egalitarian. And I would also, as I was reading this, I was thinking, why would a group split off? Well, because they'd be annoyed, they'd be mad, or probably, I'm guessing. And so nonviolent, respectful, and egalitarian would include ghosting. Like we have these new ways of being extremely passive aggressive in the way that we do things. We just ghost people when we don't like what they're doing. To me, that's a form of violence because it's passive aggressive. It's dishonest, to be more blunt. So an affinity group can be created by a split or a spinoff, but I would recommend that it be a nonviolent split or a nonviolent spinoff, because if a group spins off or splits because they don't like what's going on in another group and they form fighting in a fight, then my experience with this is that they will always need a fight in order to stay together. And I think we've seen this in our groups because we all got together every week when we were fighting the mask mandates and the jab mandates. And now we're relaxed again. Some of us. I mean, I personally am not relaxed. You know, Derek Bros came by in maybe, let's see, 3 years ago, I think he came and spoke at the We Are Change Colorado potluck in Lakewood. And he said that we had 9 years before. And I can't remember what year we're at, 2023 now. So that must have been 2021, probably. I think he said we had 9 years. Yeah, because 2030 is the agenda time. So we have 9 years to establish a parallel system, a parallel economy, a parallel community. And then after that, we just kind of faded away because there was no imminent threat. But there is an imminent threat, you know, 2030, the agenda 2030 is that we'll all be, we own nothing and we're happy, right? Which we already own nothing. If you look in how they're, what the deed, your deed on your house actually says, and how each county has a land use office, as if we're renting the land from the county. And every county is a corporation. Every municipality has become a corporation. When you elect officials into a municipality, you're not, those people have nothing to do with the corporation. And when you pay your taxes into what you think it's going to your municipality, it's actually going into the corporation. So you'd have to investigate that, find out about allodial title and how we actually do own our land, but we're ignorant, and how they're just using smoke and mirrors to take everything from us for Agenda 2030. But they're not going to put the heat on, and because they know how we are, how we've, like, they've totally groomed us. Shoot. They've totally groomed us into being complacent. And they definitely have accomplished their goal. I mean, we've all talked ourselves out of having to show up to our meetings every week or whatever. We're even do, I see we're doing them online now, which is just so vile to me. It's just so disgusting. Anyway, don't get me started on that. I'm not going to start on that right now. I was just looking, I can see something Zoom has added to my screen, but anyway, it says here, right. So what I was talking about, sorry, the phone kind of threw me off there. When you start a new group, it's got to be nonviolent, respectful, and egalitarian. And that means nonviolent towards the group you split off from. Hard to do, honestly. I get it. Believe me, I am a talker, and I love to get into being critical of others, which is just a total waste of time. I mean, I know it now. It's like being negative is easy. It's my favorite. It was my favorite thing to do. I was really good at it, but it's not useful. It's in fact destructive. And so when starting a new group, if it's in opposition to something that you split off from, it won't work if you stay angry at the other group or use that power of defense against another group as the spine of your new group, because You'll always need that then. You're always going to need something that you're fighting against. And that's not what we want in freedom. We want peaceful freedom. We don't want to have a fight be at the core of our how do I want to put this? Motivation. Because then when we have peace, we just won't see the need to show up. Our need to show up will be based on the fight that we're in. And that's just not going to work. Honestly, I've seen this thousands of times, believe me, in the groups I've been involved with over the years. And now, like, my primary tribe that I've been involved with for over 30 plus years is completely dead because of the fight. Originally, we were fighting against something, and then 10 years before the PSYOP, we were just extremely lazy because we were, you know, what I like to say, hooked up to the internet. And then the PSYOP happened, and now it's completely dead. Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, we still meet together, but large chunks of our service activities have been just completely demolished by laziness. And because and what has happened is other groups have come in and taken our what used to be our service, and now we can't get it back. So we don't even have a real reason to meet anymore. So yeah, we don't want that to happen in the freedom movement. So, like, I mean, there's a group like, I'm not going to get specific, but I know that a large group of people split off from, I guess BSU split into 3 groups, right? Maybe over some personality issue, I'm guessing. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But those groups, although they may feel a certain amount of power right now or in the beginning, they're not going to survive if they're basing their power and motivation on hatred for the original group or dislike of the original group or resentment towards individuals in the original group. That is not gonna sustain you in the storm. That's why it's necessary to have principles as your founding pillar, so that you actually have something that's spiritual in nature to go back to, of a positive force, rather than using a resentment towards others or feeling better than others. I mean, this is just all smoke and mirrors. It's never going to hold up. If you want a group that's going to last, you definitely have to use these 3: nonviolent, respectful, and egalitarian. So nonviolent towards the people you're leaving, because then also if you're using that mechanism of ghosting and passive aggressive behavior towards the people you're storming away from, then you're going to have that same, you're going to do that same thing in the group, and it's just going to divide the group. It's not what we do, but how we do it. All of us are capable of being slave drivers. I want to say oligarchs or tyrannists. All of us, everybody, every person has that ability. We can either work for the light or for the dark. We can even be fooled into thinking that we're working for the light while we're working for the dark, depending on how we are doing what we're doing. If we're wielding a whip, or if we're trying to force the group to do something rather than get equal participation from the group members, then it's going to go the way of the dark. That's why this is the whole reason why I'm bringing this up, this whole book. Egalitarian means equal participation of all group members, respecting each individual person as a child of God with a voice, with information, with ideas, with a facet of the diamond, a point of view that's necessary for the whole group. This organization of affinity groups accepts and promotes diverse and possibly challenging types of affinity groups. No affinity group will be denied participation in the organization because of, and this is where it gets a little blue for my taste, but this is from the 80s or something. So yeah, this was what was going on back then. Sexual orientation, ethnic or cultural background, age, physical or mental difference. I mean, that's relevant now, because I think I've seen on our channels cultural backgrounds being attacked by other cultural backgrounds. That's just not going to fly. This is America, the melting pot. You know, you may have a point of view that certain races are at the root of all our problems. Too bad, because we're all here and we're all in this together. We're all in the freedom movement. Some of us who have these cultural backgrounds that are disapproved of by others and say that that cultural background is the root of all of our problems. Too bad. We're all in this together. If we have these kinds of diverse, sorry. I can't think of the word right now. Dividing. Thinking of one group of people as the problem is short-sighted. Just because one group of people's last name happens to be at the head of all of the oligarchs' like, you know, it's just basic. I'm not going to mention this. I'm not going to, but it seems as though there's one type of people that are in ownership of all the bad companies that are taking over. But that doesn't mean that everyone from that group of people is bad. That's a very short-sighted point of view, very black and white. And it's just we're all in this together. Okay, so that's what they want. They want us to believe that these sort of divide and conquer things are going to work. No affinity group will be denied participation in the organization because of differences. I guess you could have an affinity group that's like all one something or other. And then we can't, the organization as a whole can't deny that one group. I mean, this is the same problem. This is the microcosm of the macrocosm. You know, if you want freedom, you have to be willing to let the Ku Klux Klan march down Main Street of your city. You remember? I know that I did a post about this a while back. Mental difference. Yeah. Physical, age, cultural background. We all have to work together on this. We have to remember all of our blood is red. The spirit that embodies each of us is the same spirit. So again, back to nonviolent, respectful, egalitarian. This structure outline is based upon two other documents, the Community X vision statement and the Community X principles and values. So they're calling this Community X. And we already went through the vision statement and the principles and values. And this, so they're saying the structural outline is based on those documents. I don't think that the formal consensus technical assistance phone line works anymore. I think it's gone. I don't think that it even exists anymore. Organizational structure outline. 1, meetings, affinity meetings, annual community meetings, elders council, peace council, orientation meetings, trainings, committee meetings, special meetings. I've definitely seen this at the Rainbow Gathering. Committees, executive, financial, membership, newsletter, outreach, fundraising, community building, agenda planning, directory, childcare, healthcare, affinity groups, mediation, festival. Roles, meeting specific. 1, facilitator, note taker, public scribe, timekeeper, greeter, peacekeeper, refreshment coordinator, housekeeper. B, long-term, treasurer, agenda, schedule coordinator, archivist, newsletter editor. This is definitely, you know, if someday we actually became one unified freedom movement with all our diverse groups, I think that's how it would be. Like, this would be a great outline for that. Meetings, all meetings of Community X, the freedom movement, are open to all community members. All meetings are conducted in the spirit of nonviolent conflict resolution and with special attention given to open-mindedness so that diversity of ideas and lifestyles is valued and supported. This is accomplished by using formal consensus decision-making, which provides for appropriate conflict and the ability to agree to disagree. All decisions at any meeting must be in harmony with the principles and values and vision statement of Community Acts and consistent with any previous decisions. I think I'm going to stop there. I think I've gone on it quite a bit, and I'm going to stop there for now. So page 67 of the book. See you next time.